Hello and welcome to another episode of Chaos Theory Astrology on YouTube. I'm Mark Harris, founder of School of Chaos Theory Astrology, and I wanted to share with you the departure chart of flight AA5342, which suffered a midair collision on its way to its landing site. I feel like this method that I am doing is somewhat unique. It builds upon the movable dial methods of previous astrological schools such as Uranian astrology and cosmobiology, and I think it can really increase our advancement of this discipline. Here's the chart data itself. The American Airlines flight AA5342, its takeoff on January 29th, 2025 at 5:18 p.m. CST from Wichita, Kansas National Airport, and the collision occurred at approximately 9 p.m. EST over the Potomac River. Here's a photograph of the intersection between the two aircraft, a airbus and a helicopter. Okay, the basis for all this discussion is that every beginning of travel has a chart. Just as the astrological maxim states, in the beginning of a thing is the index of its end. That means that any chart of a beginning travel has the results of that travel indicated in the chart in both the traditional modern 360 format that everybody uses, plus the movable dials, which I will discuss here shortly. But there are delineationally coherent patterns for each type of result for a travel chart, repeating over and over again the main factors and themes of that journey's result. For air travel, there are patterns of safe travel, patterns for accidents, air collisions, terrorist commandeerings, etc. that will occur during that trip. An AI analyzing such proposed beginning charts could look for the relevant patterns and estimate the probability of a safe flight of an aircraft taking off on a specific location, date, and time. Our government could use such techniques to determine safety of air flights, or if not that, astrologers, at least, who are concerned with the safety of their flights, could do charts for themselves. The background for this event, I did some research. The tragic collision between American Airlines flight AA5342 and a military helicopter occurred on January 29th over the Potomac River near Reagan National Airport in Washington, D.C. The flight, operated by PSA Airlines and American Eagle, was a Bombardier CR-1701ER regional jetliner carrying 60 passengers and 4 crew members. It had taken off from Wichita Dwight D. Eisenhower National Airport in Wichita, Kansas. In the image, you can see how they were lined up toward the runway of the airport they were going to land at. I'm sure it was a complete surprise that just about as they were about to land, that they had that collision. The military helicopter involved was a U.S. Army Sikorsky UH-60 Blackhawk, 3 soldiers on board. Collision occurred around 9 p.m. as the plane was approaching Reagan National Airport. Unfortunately, there were no survivors from either aircraft. This incident has led to an investigation by the National Transportation Safety Board, which is looking into factors such as air traffic control staffing and the altitudes of both aircraft at the time of the collision. Helicopter was reportedly flying nearly 200 feet higher than it should have been. The crash has deeply affected many, including the families of the victims and broader community. It's a somber reminder of the importance of aviation safety and the need for thorough investigations to prevent future tragedies. Among the passengers on board American Airlines, and this will be important, were 14 ice skaters, including athletes, coaches, and family members returning from a development camp in Wichita. Notably, Russian figure skaters Evgenia Shishkova and Vadim Novov, both former world champions, were also on the flight. Additionally, there were 4 members of the United Association of Union Plumbers and Pipe Fitters, 4 flight attendants, and several parents and students from Fairfax Public School in Virginia. Alright, so Uranian astrology focuses on the movable dials. So does cosmobiology and chaos theory astrology. But I am showing you the standard traditional modern chart with Uranian planets to give you a glimpse of what the regular chart looks like. Here we have the takeoff geocentric tropical Plastis event chart showing the different positions and aspects among the planets and points involved in this chart. You will notice that the 12th house contains Mars and Volcanos, as well as Hades and Kronos. All of those grouped together like that don't look really good, although they are not tightly conjuncted. We see in the 8th house Saturn, which is traditionally associated with death. We see in the 9th house of our journeys Neptune and Node, which are connected, uncertain future, uncertain connections, as well as Chiron, which is associated with injuries. The reputation, ruled by the 10th house, shows Uranus and Algol in there, and we have some other factors in this chart which suggest there may be problems. Here is the whole sign chart for those of you who prefer to use whole sign. We have some more information here that you can look at by pausing the video. I have the fixed stars and some of the asteroids that are involved in this chart with their positions, latitudes, resident declaration, etc. Alright. Uranian astrology, cosmobiology, and chaos theory astrology all use movable dials. The main dials used are the 360 dials, as you can see here, and the 90-degree dials. The 360 movable dial involves all the traditional signs separately and can be moved about as needed to focus on planetary midpoints, planetary sums, and to calculate 3-part formulas and other more complex formulas. The 360 movable dial is divided into 4 pieces and overlaid on each other to make the 90-degree dial. The 90-degree movable dial functions as a magnifying glass to the 360 chart, and it is a very important tool to specify what the aspects in the traditional modern chart mean. It is super powerful for obtaining further information. The first division of 30 degrees covers not only Aries but also the other cardinal signs of Cancer, Libra, and Capricorn. The fixed signs, of course, cover Taurus, Leo, and Scorpio and Aquarius. The mutable signs contain all the Gemini, Virgo, Sagittarius, and Pisces signs overlaid on each other. The orbs on the 90-degree dial and the dots on the 90-degree dial are very commonly used in the American Uranian system. Some people seem to prefer numbered dials. This seems the most powerful to me, and what we have here is areas in the chart which will be related to the pointer, wherever the pointer is pointing at. Usually the pointer is pointing at one of the event points are personal points of the dial for the Uranian and cosmobiology systems and chaos theory astrology system. They are midheaven, Aries, Sun, Ascendant, Moon, Node, Vertex, and I am going to be adding soon in my calculations the East Point, which is the Ascendant at the equator. The planets and points used Uranus and chaos theory astrology, the personal event points, as I've stated, the modern planets, which we're familiar with, Uranian planets, which are 8 planets that have been discovered through using charts as an inferential observational tool by Alfred Witte and Friedrich Sigrun of the Uranian School, the Hamburg School of Astrology, in the 1920s in Germany. They were brilliant men. These particular Uranian planets are not yet visible with our current technologies, but they have followed the ephemerides calculated for them for more than 100 years now. They are very reliable for charts of all different types to provide valid and accurate information. I personally believe that the Uranian planets should be included in every type of astrological chart, traditional, modern, dial charts, all that. They are very important, including such things as astrocartography. Additional points I use are Chiron, Trans-Pluto, and the Lahiri sidereal Aries, which I have found to be very important as an additional personal or event point for registry. Okay, rules for planetary pictures is the essential reference for interpreting formulas, midpoints, sums, 3-part formulas, even more complex formulas as you put the smaller formulas together. This is the core reference for delineations, and it specifically focuses on sums and midpoints and 3-part formulas. When I did the analysis on the dial, 90-degree dial, of the American Airlines takeoff before the crash, I found these formulas. I included the descriptions of the people who were passengers of the flight. But of course, these formulas are very explicit. Death of many through or involving air travel, women athletes, sports involving ice such as ice skating, death of women or several persons, aircraft, airbuses, death connection with a destruction of an aircraft, mighty collision or huge explosion, accidents, air accidents, death through fire or automobile, fire or collision, sudden transformations, relation to authorities, and changes in connections and actions with poor results. Okay, these are more or less core formulas, which what I did in the chaos theory astrology approach that I am doing, I am looking for midpoints that show up on the event points that I've discussed earlier. And these are the formulas that I have found that are showing up on the midpoints on this chart. The first one here, Aries plus Jupiter by Sun plus the Moon. Women or group are rewarded for accomplishments in sports, is on the 90-degree axis at the Aries point, which is known to the world in general or general conditions. You've got another complex formula about the explosion in the air, another death of women or group through aviation, death as transformation through explosion. Okay, on the 22.5 perpendicular to the 90-degree axis, we have Jupiter and Trans-Pluto, which I'm interpreting here as some transformations. The Sun, which concerns the day and event charts, according to Uranian astrology teachings, we have complex midpoints that occur on the axis of the sun. Explosion in the air involves many. Death by explosion through accident. Accident in the air. These are extremely explicit formula combinations of basic formulas which have their rulership stated, that have worked for 100 years. When you put them together, they combine the delineations into powerfully specific statements. And this goes on and on throughout the different event points going on in this chart. These are complex formulas, but they are still working powerfully. It continues on and on, same repetition of the themes, details involving who was involved, all that. Okay, node and vertex, a fate or involving fate in event charts. Know the connections in event charts, what is involved in this chart, etc. These show the midpoints, these lines here, and these are very close to exact to each personal point or event point involved. The midheaven here, these midpoints are within probably about 15 arc minutes. I didn't do the 15 arc minutes, I did 30 arc minutes on my statistical study using Claude GTP, but we'll find out about how well that did despite the less precision of the 15 arc minutes. We're seeing that with Aries, these different formulas that are midpointing, shown by the lines again. Same thing with the sun, same thing with the ascendant, same thing with the moon, same thing with the node, and same thing with the vertex. I used Claude GTP Sonnet to perform a statistical analysis of this flight takeoff chart. The base parameters were modified from a wider parameter having to do with the OKC bombing. This one only uses what is within 30 arc minutes of the event points, or within 30 arc minutes of the 22.5 dots to the axis. You have these registry opportunities for each of the axis points. We have the analysis of the simple formulas, and then the analysis of the, or demonstration of the medium formulas and their scorings, demonstration of the complex formulas, and the numbers of those that registered. The raw probability is substantial just by itself, adjusted for dependencies, which reduced it a little bit, but the final probability for this chart to so closely match the description of the event is P equals 3.76 times 10 to the minus 1/12 power. Okay, what that means is that it is way stronger a statistical significance than anything having to do with astrology in the history of statistical analysis of astrology. The Gauquelin-Mars effect was only 5 or 6 standard deviation significance. It involved a large group of people. However, that 5 or 6 standard deviations is not nearly what we have on this particular chart study, which is 22.65 standard deviation significance against chance. The original chaos theory method that I used for the Oklahoma City bombing was only 10 to the negative 82 in power, which is probably about 16 something standard deviations in significance. This modified analysis certainly outdoes that. The reason it's so high, though, is because I included a description of the passengers on the aircraft rather than simply the collision formulas and the death formulas. but those particular formulas can be reused for any collision of an aircraft. Any aircraft accident involving colliding with something else in the air can be reused. And we can use other formulas for other types of air accidents, crashes and explosions, detonations of missiles, shooting an aircraft down, etc., can be built up from the simple formulas from rules for planetary pictures. The odds of winning a major lottery are only 10 to the negative 8 power. Winning lottery tries 10 to the negative 14th. Random protein formation outdoes my negative 1/12 by a large number, which is negative 164. But this analysis is a very strong 10 to the power of negative 1/12. We have the pattern analysis here and the statistical analysis, probability against chance of what I said. It is much greater than the number of estimated atoms in the observable universe, which is only 10 to the 80 to 10 to the 82nd atoms. Very, very strong significance. And this certainly helps put into perspective just how statistically significant the pattern match is, even with our more restricted parameters of using only axis in 22.5 degree points with plus or minus 30 arc-minute orbs. I believe that this method of statistical analysis of these charts with very confined requirements, very narrow orbs, is a way to achieve enough attention to advance chaos theory astrology as a branch of chaos theory for consideration by the scientific community for acceptance. This is necessary because the government doesn't pay attention to astrology by itself. It must have a scientific basis for why it works. It must have a scientific basis saying that is accurate and useful. And once that happens, we have a possibility of using astrology to save lives. Because if you have a technology that uses a computer analysis of astrological configurations during journeys, takeoff charts, maiden voyages, voyages of ships, things like that, and they have a probability of a problem where death might be indicated, there can be adjustments made by government agencies to delay the flights in case of a collision problem or something like that, or to cancel the flights in case there's a maintenance issue that needs to be dealt with. Also, the same thing applies to shipping and other travel concerns, trains, things like that. What this could produce, if it was instituted as a technology, is that it could coincide with saving lives, because it changes the destiny of people. In an aircraft collision or other crash, people die. But if there's less crashes, less collisions, less opportunities for death through various travel methods, then that must reflect in the charts of people in the society. I hope that you have enjoyed this video and it has given you some things to think about regarding the value of astrology going forward in the world and in consideration of scientific evaluation. Thank you, and I hope that I can record another video for you soon.